Hi, and welcome to Basement Arcana's Behind the Screens. I'm Ben, your host.
And I'm Hui, your not-so-average DM.
And I'm Skip. And when you do it, it's done, it's over with. Farting on a motorcycle is the best.
We're a little late to the party on this one.
Yeah.
So, what are our initial thoughts? It's very different from D&D for sure.
Very different.
Okay. Yeah.
Up to this point, at least.
So, what did you think, Matt?
First of all, I think that the overall tone is cool. The setting's kind of cool. It's very as soon as I started watching it, it was very Lovecraftian to me, and that is the image I got right off the bat. So the whole setting and the darkness of it is definitely a draw for me as far as where it could progress.
Right, it's got that gothic horror kind of feel to it, that Victorian era kind of thing. I mean, at least how they were dressed, their characters were dressed. It really showed that. And I believe steampunk is kind of an inspiration.
Yep,
okay. I believe so. Yeah, I mean, I could tell just within the first hour that it had a very steampunk, like you said, Victorian-esque kind of feel.
Yeah, some of the things they get into are like very mechanically closed metallic canisters with little gears that you have to line up.
Little buttons and fidgets and knobs.
Medallion you had to spin, and as it spun, it began to whir and like power up. You know,
gears and moving parts.
From that point, it kind of drew me in, and then I noticed that it was like it's very, very. I don't want to say character driven because I don't feel like it's character driven. It's narrative driven. So the story that's already written for it is the driving force behind it, whereas D&D is you have that story that's there, but your players are pushing a lot of the direction and what happens.
They take part in the actual storytelling aspect of it,
right?
Whereas with Candela Obscura, I feel like it's more of a reactive.
Right.
It seemed like stuff was happening to them, and then they were just dealing with what was happening.
Right, exactly.
I mean, so
for now at least, again, it's the first episode.
Right, first episode, and the only reference point we have about the game at all is just what they've shown us so far.
Yeah.
Whereas, with D&D, you have lots of different styles of play within that same setting.
And source material from the 70s.
I mean, so it goes way back.
And one of the things that I found difficult, and admittedly, I'm not a watcher of Critical Role. That's actually the first episode I've spent time listening to and watching. It's just not my thing, because when I start hearing people talk about what their D&D character can do or whatever, I'm like, I feel like a player sitting at a table who can't do anything yet because it's not their turn. Only it's never going to be my turn. So I'm like, what did you think of that compared to other episodes of Critical Role? How did it kind of, because it did not pull me in. I think it's a cool concept. That particular episode didn't pull me in. So it's definitely putting its own kind of spin on what the game could be. So yeah, what do you guys think?
Personally, for me, I mean, when I've watched Critical Role, I have literally been at my computer desk on the edge of my seat, hands on my thighs, like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? Okay. Holy shit. And
I completely agree.
And I mean, I can't say that this is episode 47 of whatever campaign they're in, or episode 100. So I have all this backstory to what's been going on, and I'm on the edge of my seat about the culmination of all of that. So with this being episode 1, it's a little bit of a skewed view,
right?
But there was definitely some situations where I was like, okay, so what is this Candela Obscura? Okay, what was the mysterious figure in the alleyway? Alexandria, I think, or Alexandra.
Yeah.
What was her name? And that kind of gave me a little bit of that sense, but I didn't really find myself through the first like hour or so of the episode being like, whoa, like, oh my God.
I found myself, so along with what you're saying, like campaign 2 up to this point of Critical Role's D&D play has been my favorite. And you go through and you watch these characters develop, you see them start from nothing and move on to become these powerful fighters, clerics, whatever, and they gain all their spells and everything, and you see how they get their emotional scars, many of their emotional scars, a lot of their physical scars and what have you. What threw me off a little bit was when Laura Bailey's character Arlo took off her glove and there was like this necrotic hand, and I'm sure it'll come up later, but you don't see how that happens. Right? It's just already there, and then there's a point where there's almost additional bleed that is absorbed into it. Bleed being, the magical
damage aspect that happens in it.
Yeah, that comes through the thinning. And
so I think, at least for me, one of the things that I kind of recognized, because I had it on in the background. I was doing some other stuff. I was actually working on thumbnails for this.
Which we hope you like because it's pretty good.
I mean, some time and effort is put into them, people.
So what caught me was that I was listening to it and it didn't catch me. I'm like, and then I looked at it and it's like 2.5 hours in, and I'm like, I haven't actually I haven't grasped any of this. So, that might be just, that might be on me. I did try and watch the first part, and I did stop what I was doing, and I paid attention when they were like going over the rules. I wanted to make sure, to understand the game.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I felt like it was hard to get into is, since I don't understand how the rules work, even explaining it just went over my head. It's like it's I played D&D enough that I understand. So when somebody says something, even if I don't know that spell or that kind of thing, I understand what's going on. And so it's like, oh, I just don't know that thing. But the thing that really caught me was I didn't hear any instances of combat. There was nothing that went like, oh, what's going on now? There was nothing that grabbed me and said, oh, pay attention right now. And I even fast forwarded through and I found what I thought was like, oh, this seems like a tense scenario, but it was just something happening to one of the characters. I think it was like a ghostly hand came out of somewhere and it went through a character, and then something happened to them. And
I think that's probably the same spot that I was like, because my attention drifted off as well, and then I heard something going on. I was like, "Oh wait, what's going on?" So I rewound it back, and it was Robbie Damon's character. I can't remember his name.
Howard something, the professor.
Yeah. The professor. He took a piece of rebar, was trying to chisel ice off of the door, and then spirit went into him, and he was like, "Oh, I just feel really bad, and some bad things happen."
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, it felt very anticlimactic in the moment.
That's something I think that anybody who loves the aspect of combat in D&D, which Candela Obscura is not D&D.
Right.
It's not.
By far.
But for those of us that love D&D, we love to have our combat.
And watching Matt Mercer's stories in combat, he's phenomenal.
His ability to build combat into a story itself is phenomenal.
So who do you think this system would be geared more towards?
I think, kind of what we were saying earlier before we started up, is for those that are very into character progression, drama, theatricals, watching something build from nothing, in a almost a movie sense in a way, or a book sense, from a novel. I think people that are very into that are going to gravitate towards Candela Obscura, and there's going to be people out there that
you made
love it.
Too was it kind of hit the nail on the head. It reminds me of old time radio stories, like you were saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can you can listen to it, get a sense of what's going on, but at least in this situation, from what I gathered from it, it's lacking the punch that I'm looking for in the storytelling. I agree that someone who is probably more into the RP seems very, very RP heavy, which is fine if that's what you're into. I don't mind the RP aspect of D&D, but sometimes I want to get down to the nitty gritty and fuck some shit up. You know what I mean?
I want to roll some dice. I want to make some numbers happen.
I want to roll initiative.
So one of the things that and I think this kind of touches on something that you said that started with is like, so I think one of the big differences is how the world is D&D compared to Candela Obscura, where D&D, you're in a world where there might be a lot of magic, there might be a little bit of magic, but like everybody is a part of that world. Whereas in this, there are two separate worlds. There is the normal world that is kind of like away from what all this stuff is going on. And then you have like the secret world that like deals with it. And it reminds me a lot of like SCP. Like I would wholeheartedly believe that a lot of people who develop this, and I would be surprised if the answer is no, but I think that they're into that kind of stuff. It just seems like, I mean, you have a secret entity that's trying to keep the rest of the world from dealing with these anomalous things that are happening because it is not common. You have other entities that are kind of doing it. So I think I like the idea of having a campaign that's flavored like that. I mean, the setting is modern in SCP, but you can do it at whatever you want. But it was that distinctive difference in the worlds. And I think what you were kind of alluding to is like, this is more internal. The narrative is internalized because you're trying not to affect the world around you. You're trying to keep it contained. Whereas like in D&D, you're a hero in the world. Yeah. So like you go out and like people might know who you are. Like, oh, you're the hero, and
you're more unsung and unrecognized in this situation.
And I think that's definitely not pro or con. I think that's just a different thing. Yeah. But one of the things that I did think was kind of cool about that was like, I didn't like that you were disconnected, but it's contained. Like you're not. When you travel from where you are to where you're going, there is no random encounters. There's no something that can happen. Like you're just going to get to the place. And so you can do a campaign that is just going to be in that location. It can be however long you want it to go. And then you're done,
until you get your next assignment.
One of the things that I find at least a lot of groups that I've been part of is somewhere down the line, it just breaks apart. Like there's just internal tension with the group, and the group isn't strong enough of a group of friends to stay together. And so I just end up with a lot of campaigns where it's like we're 6-12 sessions in and like people just stop playing. This seems like it's really great to just have a quick session, and also it seems really great for people who can't make it all the time. Like you can just drop a character in, or you can have them pull out like, we got a message from the place and you got to get back because we need you here.
Sorry.
Or whatever. Or I mean, I'm kind of imagining like you're in a haunted house, which isn't necessarily the setting, but like if you're in a haunted, I got to step outside. So now you're outside of the haunted house, and that theoretically is normal place. You're not going to get bugged there. And I think that's kind of cool. So what are your thoughts on that? What do you think is positive about this?
I think what you said about the kind of like, you only play with so many friends, and people they can't make it, whatever the deal might be, they don't get interested, and then like you end up ending after 10-11 sessions. I mean, you and I attended a panel at PAX about a West March style campaign where you have upwards of 20-25 players that just come in and out, and you really start in the same city at the beginning of every session. You go out, complete a mission, come back. And then that's with 5-6 people. The next session, it might not even be the 5-6 people, same 5-6 people, or maybe 1 or 2 of them are there too. And you have like 20 other players that, hey, I can make it tonight. So they come. And that's a great situation for what you're saying.
I mean, in a couple of my campaigns, I tried to incorporate like a guild for that very reason. It's like, okay, here's how you get your missions. It kind of fell apart. It was I bit off more than I could chew in that particular scenario, but it was an attempt to kind of create that kind of a thing where it's like, oh yeah, you're just going to get hired out to do this thing. And
I think it also lends itself to people who are new to it or are unsure about it. They can, dip their toe in the water, and if they like it, they like it. And if they don't, then, you don't have to necessarily continue playing anymore without hurting anybody's feelings.
Right.
Because then you can just write them out of the story a lot easier than just being like, so-and-so just decided they don't want to do this D&D campaign anymore. So now they're going back to their homeland for whatever reason, or they fell off a cliff. They're dead now. You know what I mean? Now, it's just you're out.
You make a really good point, though, because I think Candela Obscura by itself, like we said before, is a very narrative-driven, RP-driven type of deal. So if you have a friend that is just kind of on the edge of deciding like whether or not they really want to get into that kind of deal, I don't want to say that characters in Candela Obscura are kind of expendable. In a way, they kind of are.
They do feel a little bit
expendable, but this is a good way for a friend to say, hey, we're going to play Candela Obscura tonight. If you want to come in, I can have a little character written up for you. We can introduce you in the town, city, whatever it might be. If it's not really what you're feeling with the RP aspect of things, because D&D is both RP and combat and understanding and everything, Candela Obscura could really be a great way to introduce people to that RP
so like a
aspect.
TTRPG.
Yeah.
I was just thinking while you were saying that is like it almost mirrors, like you could have a character that kind of mirrors the player. Is like, I'm not sure I want to join this organization.
Yeah.
So you could literally have the character play how the player is feeling about the whole thing, and then this isn't for me, and so the character just dips out. This isn't for me. I mean, obviously the in-world reason and the out-of-world reasons are slightly different, but
I don't want to say that Candela Obscura is the prereq to D&D, or
they're just
they're completely different realms of things. But I think that if you are a DM of a D&D session and you play Candela Obscura as well, it would be a good way to kind of to say, hey, hop in this one because it's not really as in depth and crazy as D&D might be.
Yeah. At least to start.
Not to knock down Candela Obscura at all.
Obviously, so you get your assignments in Candela Obscura, and it's really great for one shots, or maybe it goes for 3 sessions, and then that assignment's done. Right? It doesn't necessarily mean that assignment isn't part of some bigger storyline, but it doesn't have to be. It could be, hey, that's it. That's all you guys were playing,
right.
We were planning on doing. So how did you like it? Do you want to keep playing? And then the GM at this point can figure out maybe how to tie it in or do another thinning or what have you. The only thing that's kind of weird to me, and just the way it seems without the combat and people having, I mean, there's certain like abilities each character class gets, but it seems to me, at least from what I've seen, that they're going up against all this supernatural stuff, ill-equipped.
Yeah,
right. It's like we had talked about it. It's like sending someone who's being recruited for the Men in Black to go up against all these crazy aliens without the noisy cricket.
Nope.
Right.
You don't even have the weapon you need to do it.
And kind of going back to that expendable thing, and I think one of the things that's important is to realize that we don't know all the mechanics of the game and how it works. So we're just making assumptions based on what we saw.
These are
We've
first
gone
impressions.
through the rules and gameplay and mechanics and whatnot. And damn it, there's no D20s.
Yeah.
There's no D20s. It's all D6s.
I will say, I think that's great just because D6s are so prevalent. Like, you can literally go, Grandma, do you have any D6s? And she's going to have D6s just laying around.
She's going to have a whole lot of dice hanging around.
D6?
Yeah.
We playing Yahtzee?
Yeah. But with the expendability, like, and this is just an assumption, but it was talking about like the injuries, or whatever it was. And it was like, if you, the scars, yeah. And I think it was like, if you got too many in one category and couldn't get any more, then you were dead.
If you take too many marks in a category, like
brain, bleed, or
I forget the third one, but it's like physical or something like that.
Yeah.
You take 3 marks in either one, then you get a scar.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Then you erase them all, and then you start over from that.
Okay.
But once you get too many scars within that assignment, then your character is
all right. That was a misunderstanding. It seemed like it was 1, 2, 3, but it's 1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3.
Yes.
So that seems a little bit, because it just seemed this is the world that it seemed like it was. Okay, you are.
And I think after every scar you get, up until the point where you are completely incapacitated, you are knocked unconscious.
You're knocked unconscious, and you have to have a narrative reasoning of what happens to you due to that scar, whether it drastically changes your character. And again,
there's bits and pieces that you
the
have to
building of
switch.
character progression, like it's like watching dynamically how a character progresses through. Like, shit, I've almost watched 1,000 episodes of One Piece, and you see how the character progression goes through that.
So what were you saying?
It seemed like the world was, before you kind of clarified, it seemed like the world was like, okay, you're not part of this world until you are. Either you get recruited or you seek it out. It's almost like getting your Hogwarts letter.
Yep.
And then you're part of this secret world, and you get thrown to these like places, like lambs to the slaughter. And I thought it was just like, you're going to go to this one place. All right, you got 2 scars there. You go to this, you got enough scars. And then that's it. They're just constantly recruiting. That's another reason why I had like the SCP comparison was you had the D class, they're just disposable. You have MTFs that are just like getting like, they went in to try and fix a thing, and it's like, oh, this is the 3rd one that we sent in there. Hopefully you guys are going to fare better.
Yeah.
Right.
So it doesn't seem exactly like that, but
no, but I feel like it's almost like the GM at this point could, on any failed attempt at something, he could be like, all right, you failed at opening a door and you slammed your thumb in the door. You're going to take a mark on the body. Now, how does that mark affect you?
Yeah.
Well, I think in that scenario, we're talking about DMs behaving badly because, if you're going to have a DM that's going to be like, oh, you stubbed your toe, time for a mark.
You stepped on a Lego. How deep does it go?
Even in the rules section of in the recent Critical Role session, when they were going over, he said specifically it could be incapacitated or dead.
Yeah.
So I think it's up to GM discretion at that point to say, okay, your character is going to be essentially in an insane asylum or in a hospital or whatever it might be. If you took it for brain or bleed or whatever, you could lose track of your mind for whether it be an assignment or 2, and then they come back in. But that can only happen for so many times, like you could reach a point where
it is, in fact, body, brain, and bleed.
Body, brain, and bleed. Okay, so if you take body, all right, you've lost a limb. And you take brain, okay, you're on the verge of losing your mind. And on the 3rd one, after that would be 6 scars at that point. At the 3rd one, your character essentially dies from just whatever it might be. It's GM discretion at that point.
So I think outside of specifically going over the mechanics, which I feel ill-equipped to go over them.
Oh yeah, of course.
I'm definitely interested in playing this. I think we've already discussed that we're definitely going to try and play this just to get an idea, because you can't take one group's one playthrough that they seem to thoroughly enjoy.
Sure.
You can't take that as the only thing. So, I'm
first impressions.
Yeah, first impressions. I'm excited about the differences. The cons are just theoretical at this point. You have no idea until we actually play how it might actually impact what happens. Who knows? I might enjoy this more than D&D. I do like the combat aspect of it. I like being a hero, and I don't know if I would necessarily feel the same way about my character. Time will tell. But yeah, any final thoughts before we end the episode?
If you like Clue, you'll like Candela Obscura.
I forgot to mention. Yeah, that was one thing. I was like, let's all get together and play Clue.
Yeah, if you love Clue and you love going out there and doing that kind of stuff, you're going to love Candela Obscura.
My first character will be Professor Plum.
Yes.
Also, I would just like to say that cashews may be the preferred nut over almonds, but I submit that almonds make a better butter.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
Well said.
All right. Well,
said.
that was our first impression. Hopefully you enjoyed our little diatribe there. We're definitely going to do a video once we have a chance to play the game and get our, actual impressions of that. Definitely watch the episode for yourself, get an idea what it is, and I definitely encourage you to try it out.
Do your own research. Think for yourself.
Always do your own research on like everything.
This is our personal...
Unless we tell you not to.
And then listen to us. But this is our personal first impressions of Candela Obscura, and I think I can agree that all three of us are diehard D&D fans. And so that's where we're coming from. So just want to point that out.
It's always good to try new things, though.
Yeah.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, basement_arcana.
Yeah.
Like,
share, subscribe.
Yeah.
Comment if you like.
Drop us an email.
Let us know what you think.
basementarcanacast@gmail.
Come over to my house, cook me some food. That'd be great.
Yeah, I like food.
Mm-hmm. All right. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Later.
Long live the D20!
Yeah.